In this video, we will create an awesome string utility type which will provide autocomplete functionality but still accepts any kind of strings. Let's get started. So before we start to implement this lenient autocomplete, let me first show you in code what kind of issue we will solve with this. So we have this type here, languages, and this is a union of the strings TypeScript or JavaScript. Now let's say we create a function and let's call this function setLanguage. So this function takes an argument, let's call this argument language, and now let's say this is of type languages. Now we can of course use it really easy, we just call setLanguage and then we create a string and we get the autocompletion for JavaScript or TypeScript right away. I can even write, for example, script, and we can see in our autocompletion which elements contain script. So for example, I use TypeScript here. Now this works perfectly fine, but let's say we want to allow the users of this set language to also pass another language. So we don't want to restrict the user of this function to use the string TypeScript or JavaScript. We only want to provide this as a suggestion. So currently this does not work because if I change this from TypeScript, for example, to Rust, then we can see we get a compile time error because Rust is not in this union type. Now, how could we fix this? Well, we could try to do the following. We could say this is either of type languages or it's a string. Now we can see this now works because now we are also allowing normal strings in there. But let's see what happens if I now try to use the autocompletion again. We can see when I put in script, I no longer get autocompletion. So why does TypeScript no longer provide to us these autocompletions? Let's see what the resulting type is when we use this union of languages and string. So let's create a type here and let's call this type complex language. And we say this is either language or string. Now when we check what kind of type this results in string because TypeScript sees that these languages here are just a union of string, and because we say this is either of type languages or string, it will collapse this into the string type. So we could just remove this languages type from the union because this does not have any effect at all. So how could we fix this? Well, first let's change this to complex language and let's see how we can change this so that we still have the autocompletion, but we still are allowed to pass any string we like. So how will we fix this? The solution is really simple, but really cool. What we can do is we can say this is a union of languages and string, but the string has something else. We add an intersection type here and we add the empty object type to it. This empty object type here does not behave the same way as an empty object in JavaScript because this empty object in TypeScript represents every possible type beside null or undefined. It's a really cool concept, and if you're interested, let me know in the comments if you'd like to have this covered in a future video. But in this video, I will not go deeper into this topic, but maybe you have already spotted something really interesting what happened. This complex language type now is no longer just a string, but it again has the languages type here. So when we hover over this, we can see the resulting type now is again a union of languages and this string with this empty object type. So let's now see what the result of this is. So let's remove this here and let's just add an empty string here and we can see we get the autocompletion for JavaScript and TypeScript. I can still write script in there and we can see I get the autocompletion. So I use TypeScript here. This still works, but I can still remove this here and for example just write Rust and this still works too. Because when I write Rust, TypeScript sees, okay, this is not a language, but of course because it's a union of languages and this string with this empty object, this means that also strings are allowed. So this is really awesome because this allows us to have like a lenient autocomplete feature where it's possible to pass any possible string, but we still can have the autocompletion feature and suggest certain inputs to the user. Now, of course, we can make this a little bit more generic. So we can say we create a type here and let's call this type lenient autocomplete. And we pass in a type T and we say this has to be of type string. And then we say this is a union of this type. And it can also be a string, which is an intersection type with the empty object type here. Now we can remove this here. And instead of passing this complex language, we just use our lenient autocomplete and pass our languages type here. And we can see this still compiles. So let's see if this is still working. We can see it still allows any string in there, but when we try to use the autocompletion feature, this still works and we can still use JavaScript or TypeScript. So by using this approach, we don't have to choose if you want to have autocompletion, but be really restrictive to the type, or if you want to be less restrictive and allowing all possible strings in there, but sacrificing the autocomplete feature. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something useful today. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date for the newest TypeScript stuff. And also let me know in the comments what kind of topics you'd like to have covered in future videos. See you in the next one. Bye.